Fantasy really is a very good harassment player, and so is Leta. That's the most interesting thing about both of these players in their TVT styles. I'd say Leta historically has been a little bit better than Fantasy, but certainly anything can happen. And Leta, in fact, has been the one who's not really doing much harassment this game. He's the one playing more of a standard game, in fact. If this was Fantasy versus, say, Flash, he's being the Flash here. He's being the not saying that Flash isn't creative often or crazy often, which both of which he is, but in general, when he plays against other top players, he tends to play more conservative because he's very, very good with that standard conventional build of his. Fantasy is gonna face a drop from Leta. Leta is going into the back of Fantasy's base, and Fantasy this time is the one caught off guard, I think. He hasn't pulled his SCVs, now he's pulling SCVs. He is gonna advance forward, but he's gonna lose a number of SCVs while he pushes forward with his tanks, trying to set up a siege position. Fantasy actually making a mistake, I think. He's bringing his SCVs right back, and he's only got one tank there defending. No, he does have more units. Tank's gonna, come close to going down. Fantasy managing to clean up this harassment. I think he took some losses. Leta manages to escape with his dropship, though. And very, very close game still. Leta might be slightly ahead. Fantasy just not able to push forward, it seems. And Leta now trying to take over his half of the south part of the map, basically. A lot of different paths on this. Lot of paths to glory. Different ones here. And we'll see which ones the players manage to take. Ooh, Leta advancing under fire, but doing a good job of it. And he's going to advance into siege tanks. No, he's going to siege up before he gets within range of those couple of tanks. Leta definitely has more forces here, as you can see on the right side. Fantasy, oh no, I'm sorry. I thought Fantasy was going to get uber harassed, but those were his own vultures, chasing one vulture from Leta. Fantasy has got 3 wraiths also. I think he's trying to build up a small wraith force here. And that's going to help him because he's going to probably try to use it in the middle of a big battle, and hopefully for him, Leta will not have enough anti-air available. Looks like Fantasy trying to move down the left side, going to take out some mines. Now Leta has responded correctly, though. He is very, very alert, and that certainly explains his general success in TVT. He is very, very on top of the game. He is just very creative and very just super, super vigilant. I mean, just ridiculous APM. Flash-like in many ways. Oh man, that one vulture from Leta getting destroyed though. And there is the opening of the hand here. 3 wraiths are going to be pointed out now to Leta, of course. Leta doesn't seem to have any anti-air here, so he's going to lose a couple of siege tanks. And this was Fantasy's ploy the entire time, of course. Siege tanks are not cheap. And killing a couple of them definitely helps the game. Fantasy right now trying to advance the bottom left. And that's another good job here. He is really keeping up the pressure. I mean, even though Leta has managed to hold off the harassment here and there without too much damage, once again, he's holding off the Wraith harassment. He hasn't been able to push forward. Fantasy's the one constantly nipping at his heels here, and Leta is actually the one who's kind of contained here at the south part of the map. So even though, if you go by casualty counts, Fantasy has done worse, he seems to have done better strategically in this game. He has +1 right now. And not sure what Leta's at in terms of upgrades. Of course, upgrades really matter when you get to +2 attack. Oh, there's Leta, what Leta's been doing. Leta has been building tons of dropships. He's going to go for a drop game here, but Fantasy now is the one with a lot of vultures up front, and the vultures destroy 4 tanks that were completely unsupported. That's why you absolutely have to support your tanks. And in fact, Fantasy may have more tanks on the map now than Leta does. In fact, but Leta actually is going to drop right on top of Fantasy's tanks. That's going to kill off that small advance there. Fantasy just not able to advance. Leta just struggling to defend, basically the story of the game here. Both players not really managing to take an advantage. Now Leta is going to be trying to go for a big drop, though. He's got 4 dropships. I'm not sure if they're all full. Trying to find a spot here, but he's not going to go for the upper right. I think he knows it's there. Leta, meanwhile, facing an attack with a lot of vultures, attacking these couple of tanks. He keeps leaving these couple of tanks behind. Of course, that's not his fault, but man, Fantasy has got 1 wraith, that hero wraith, forcing Leta, in fact, to unload. And this is a bad position for Leta to unload, I feel, because look at this position. It's caught between the 2 forces of Fantasies. It's not defending his main, nor is it really doing much in terms of putting pressure on Fantasy. All it's doing is really attacking a barracks. Leta, well, he looks like he's managed to stop Fantasy. Fantasy's not advancing any further towards any important points of the map, any expansions. He's also building, Fantasy is, a big wall of turrets. Fantasy counter drops all over Leta. And that's going to clean up this middle force. Fantasy, I would say, now has taken the lead with this drop. The economic advantage of Leta's has definitely been balanced out by these very nice battles fought by Fantasy. So right now, Fantasy with a slight advantage, I gotta think. Now Leta, sieged up on the high ground here. And not sure exactly what each player's plans are. I mean, basically, it's well, there's no real big planning at this point unless they're going to do some kind of tech switch. It's really just reacting to your opponent's moves and trying to, upstage him with a better drop or a better positioning of your units. And right now we're seeing Leta expand one more time on the right side. Certainly one of the most tactical things you could do, though, is sort of a drop at one point and then a main attack at another point. In general, that's what TVT ends up becoming in these dropship wars. If you are the one who can do that, then it certainly helps out. Fantasy right now looks like he's going to take down Leta's barracks. Certainly not a huge loss, just a bit of an annoyance. Leta trying to defend his new expansion. Once again, he's the one taking the expansions before Fantasy is. Definitely, he is choosing to be more expansionistic, whereas Fantasy is choosing to be more aggressive. Leta is actually not going to be ahead, though. Fantasy has a new base going up at the upper left at about the same time. And right now, it seems that Fantasy's plan is working better. Usually, you don't see this from Leta. Leta you generally see as a very aggressive player. But we'll see what happens. Fantasy here, Fantasy is going to just try to push forward a little bit more. And see what happens here. Oh, nice. Pounding away at those tanks of Fantasy's. Leta trying to just hold that right side. On the left side, it seems that Fantasy has gotten his flank pretty well secured, although Leta has a lot of units moving to the upper left there on the left side. We'll see if they manage to get anywhere there. Yeah, both players have just divided the map on a horizontal axis, just, symmetrical north and south, but there's some units on the left side. I'm not sure what those are, those purple things. Oh, there's just a couple of mines, as we see right now, just some of Fantasy's mines. But no, there's more units now. There's actually real units coming over. Fantasy kind of push forward. I think Leta's not sure if he's going to be able to hold with vultures only. He doesn't manage to. So Fantasy has managed to take over that little point. Oh, man, Fantasy is going to intercept some of these dropships, and Leta is unable to drop on the tanks. That's crucial. You absolutely do not want to lose dropships, but Leta actually is going to go right past that area. Fantasy spots it, though, with his turrets, and Fantasy has got a counter drop ready. He is just way too prepared. I thought Leta would sort of gain a march on him, but he hasn't. And Fantasy also has one Wraith. That one Wraith has been just quite the thorn in Leta's side, actually. And Fantasy, oh man, he's caught Leta's dropships! Oh man, Leta in huge trouble. I feel like he should have released at some point, but Leta has just lost maybe 3 or 4 dropships full of units, and that is absolutely a loss you cannot sustain. Fantasy now dropping all over Leta's forces on the left side. Leta has actually built a command center there, but he's going to lose it. Man, Fantasy has played much better, I think, this game than Leta. I can't believe this. Fantasy just, wow, he might have an advantage now that Leta cannot come back from. I really think Leta is in huge trouble at this point. He does manage to get to the upper right, though, but this is the 5th base of Fantasy's. I don't think Fantasy will mind this so much, though, because he is way ahead in his army count, and he's going for this critical 3rd base on the left side with a much larger army. Leta only has 1 tank. It goes down. Fantasy facing a smaller attack on the right side. He's got a reaction force there. Leta has to get it done somehow at this point. I don't think he can just play on from this. He can't sustain a long game afterwards. He's going to lose if he tries. Fantasy trying to go in. He smartly moves his dropships away. That's the thing with Goliaths. If you can focus fire down a couple of dropships, it is very, very good for your cause. I mean, if you can just pick off a couple, just snipe a number of them, that will swing the game drastically in your favor. On the other hand, of course, they're much less useful against tanks. That's the cost of having them. In any case, it looks like Fantasy is going to take down this this bottom left there. Leta just trying to do a little harassment, I think, but not going to get far. Fantasy actually could just walk up there. I'm not sure if he's aware that there's only 1 tank defending. Now 2 tanks defending the bottom left. Leta has actually managed to get into Fantasy's 4th base, though, with a larger force, and Leta is going to have to drop. Fantasy's going to drop on top of the mines, but Fantasy only drops 1 unit on top of those mines. Brilliant play from Fantasy. Fantasy using the mines against Leta, and what was supposed to be, well-placed mines by Leta has actually really done nothing for him at all. Fantasy is going to take out this harassment, although he did lose all the SCVs there. And right now, let's do a quick base count. I think Fantasy